It's been brought to my attention that Honda just shat out the XR150L for us. Right off the bat, it looks exactly like those super cheapo Chinese bikes that you pick up at like the shops that are next to the gas station that just sling cheapo ATVs. The right off the bat is that this thing just screams as cheap as possible. And I think that's the point. They do call attention to the price pretty hard. They're like, in terms of price, that's a dream come true too. At $3,000, the bean counters went crazy on this one, and this is what we get. This looks like the XR150L engine. That's the first thing that I noticed when I was told about this bike. It looks exactly like the same engine. The only thing I can see going on differently is this little shroud thing on the intake. Is that just like some tamper-proof cover or something? I don't know. But yeah, there is some difference on the intake side, and that appears to be it. They didn't even change the gray dipstick. That's a carburetor on a brand new bike in 2023. Kinda cool, easily tunable, and kinda cool because it's a direct actuated carburetor. So as long as you have this thing tuned right, it's gonna be not god-awful unresponsive. It should be responsive. Probably not fast at all. My experience on the old on the 2006 Plus XR150L is that it has no bottom end, and you really have to wring its neck to get it to do anything. And this, I can imagine, could only be worse. EPA jetting settings, EPA exhaust, EPA intake, it's only gonna be worse. I would imagine it's probably going to struggle to maintain 55. Those forks, man, those forks look dinky. 7/8 inch handlebar, looks to be like a Steely with no crossbar. That's asking for trouble. That's not gonna go off-road. I mean, like gravel roads and stuff, sure. The second you lay it down, those bars are gonna break or bend badly. I wouldn't want to hit any off-road obstacles with those bars. So everything so far is just screaming as cheap as possible, trying to undercut those bikes that everyone loved that were actually kind of off-road capable, like the DR200 and XT225. This is just going below. They're making something that straight up I would not trust it underneath me to do off-road stuff. Again, gravel roads, dirt roads, sure, but even if that gravel starts getting deep enough, it will not inspire any confidence. Ugh. Okay, let's look. This frame looks like the XR150 and 230 frame, which is probably a very good thing in this situation. Look at those rims, steely rims, down to the rims. They've done everything to just cut the price on this thing. And the fact that they got it below 3,000 is kind of impressive while using a high quality engine. That 150L engine, totally indestructible. Those things are so good. You can run them low, like real low on oil, and not do any damage. It looks like we've got probably 3 things going for this thing. It's gonna be super indestructible because that engine, it's a tank. It's cheap, so if you really just needed some transportation, you might have lower costs than a car because the insurance is going to be so cheap on this thing. And the cost of running is also probably going to be pretty dang cheap because the third thing about this thing is that it has to be super efficient. I know dual sporting on my 230, a less efficient engine than this thing, I would get consistently above 90 miles per gallon and often above 100 miles per gallon. So it was super good on gas. And this thing, as long as you keep it to the same load, so like on this thing cruise at 45, whereas on the 230 cruise at 55, this thing should be even more efficient. So this thing could compete with like used compact cars for getting you around cheaply. It really could. Just don't go trying to fly around off-road on it and break everything on this thing. It'll get expensive. I mean, those forks look very bendy. But the good news is it looks like it's on the 230 and 150L frame. It looks like it. I can't confirm because it's not right here in my hands. And so down the road, when these things are getting passed down and people like me just end up with one in their hands, you should be able to upgrade it. You should be able to basically turn it into a 230 or a 150 in terms of suspension and all that stuff. Possibly. Because there's one funky thing going on with the swing arm that I see. It looks like the shock is just directly connected to the swing arm. So I'm wondering if maybe the shock mount on top is different, and then maybe there's stuff in the way there to where you couldn't use a 150 or 230 swing arm and get a linkage. They cut costs so hard they didn't even put a linkage on this thing. Unless they've snuck a linkage in there that you just can't see. Okay, so taking a look at the specs, 149cc engine, which we expect because I'm pretty dang sure that is exactly the same engine as the 2006 Plus CRF150F. Has the same bore and stroke, but here they're saying 4 valves per cylinder. Okay, so here's the 2006 Plus CRF150F cylinder head. Is there room to turn that into a 4 valve? Maybe? I have my doubts. I think that might be a mistake. Number 428 chain, that's like, that's kind of unfortunate. Okay, the front fork, that toothpick, is 31 millimeters. You ain't hitting whoops on that, I'll tell you that. And then that rear shock only has 6 inches of travel. You ain't gonna be riding this thing off-road like an actual dirt bike. I mean, you could try, but you're gonna pound it into oblivion. You could replace those bars, and then you could go ham and you could be reasonably assured that you're not gonna get hurt. But with 7 inches in the front and 6 inches in the rear, you're gonna pound this thing into oblivion, especially given that it weighs 282 pounds on that type of suspension. Yeah, this is not a dirt bike.